Today, the hills above the Little Bighorn River in Montana are tranquil and at peace. The river flows through the green valley past the clusters of cottonwood trees. The wind gently caresses the long prairie grass. But a little over 125 years ago, these hills were anything but peaceful, as two great nations clashed here on June 25, 1876, the day of destiny. The United States government sent 3 armies to find and encircle the tribes, using as its primary strike force the elite 7th Cavalry and its flamboyant commander, Lieutenant Colonel George Armstrong Custer. During the winter of 1876, Custer and the 7th were stationed at Fort Abraham Lincoln, Dakota Territory. Life at the fort was reasonably comfortable for Custer and his wife Libby, as well as officers of the unit, including Major Marcus Reno and Captain Frederick Benteen. And so, on June 22nd, Lieutenant Colonel George Armstrong Custer and the 7th Cavalry separated from General Terry in the now combined Dakota and Montana columns. Custer and his force of almost 700 troopers had no idea of the morbid destiny that awaited them on the 25th. This was the scene that waited for Custer as he followed the Indian Trail up Rosebud Creek. By the night of June 24th, the trail had led him away from the creek and up toward the dividing ridge between the Rosebud and the... Reno placed all 3 of his companies in line of attack at the village's edge, as the Hunkpapa warriors were the first to react, covering the flight of the non-combatants. Meanwhile, from atop the location that would later be referred to as Weir Point, Custer waved his hat to Reno to alert him to his position. He then had his adjutant W.W. Cook write a message to Benteen to hurry up and bring the remaining ammunition from the pack train which had fallen further behind. The charging Sioux horses kicked up dust clouds, and the smoke of the rifles added to the haze. Gunshots and the shrieks of the Indians only made the scene more confusing. Encountering overwhelming resistance and realizing this was still only the middle of the huge village and not the north end, Custer and Yates reversed direction and raced back up the hill to rejoin Keel on what is now known as Calhoun Hill. As Captain Yates' battalion left Medicine Tail Coulee, he employed skirmishers in good order to cover their movement up Deep Coulee toward Calhoun Hill. Warriors began to spill across the ford and ascend both the Medicine Tail and Deep Coulees. It was now some 30 minutes after the Reno fight, and Gall had diverted hundreds of Hunkpapa, Sans Arc, and Minneconjou warriors from the southern end of the camp to meet this new threat. Soon the warriors are able to close in and overrun their position. Custer is felled. The Battle of the Little Bighorn was the Indians' greatest victory over the whites, and their last. Who is to say, even today, who was in the right and who was in the wrong? What is important is that we remember what happened on this now hollow ground, and honor the ideals of those that fell on both sides.